One more speedrunners, noobs and leads. Welcome once again to the Idiot Gamer Podcast! Here we are back on the pod once again. We've got Scruff over there in Washington, D.C.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Andy Roberts.
Hello.
And also in the studio with me here, we have Matt Angel.
Hello.
Right. Now, I must first of all confess, as we just found out, as we got ourselves started, that I'm a little bit out of sorts today. So some standard features of the show may not be present.
Do you want to explain to our lovely dear listeners why that's the case, and therefore to garner some sympathy, so they're not furious at you for not preparing a lovely quiz?
Well, exactly. So I had a busy day at work, and I left early to come back, prepare the quiz, get everybody ready for the pods, because we did multiple pods today. And then I fell off my bike on the way home from work. Yeah, and caused myself injuries.
Oh no, there's a flappy plaster on his
which I'm
hand.
sporting now. Yeah, it's come loose. So I was a little bit out of sorts, and then we had to do the other pod, and by the time this one came, zero preparation. So what that means is that the pressure is on the rest of you to perform above and beyond.
On the plus side, I had 15 minutes to prepare because you locked me in your garden for 15 minutes while you were recording the other podcast. So I did that. I did research during that 15 minutes. So I am carrying you today, Si.
Perfect. I will definitely be carried.
You've got a hand injury there. Are you going to be okay to play video games?
No.
What?
No. No. It's a problem. I was trying to play. I don't know.
Stop the pod. Stop the pod.
Can see right now, but I'm injured.
We're
showing that on the webcam.
That's pretty brutal.
That is actually quite a nasty graze you've got there.
It's not great. So I can only play adventure games where I just have to click one. But I could probably play Detroit Become Human.
Yeah, you could,
because you don't really need to do much playing. Apparently,
no, indeed.
But I hear it's very QTE heavy though, so good luck trying to keep up with that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. If there's pressure on, forget it.
If you've got to use your palm to rotate one of the sticks, you might be in trouble.
Well, so I'm sporting that injury, but the pod must go on.
And it shall
go on. So we'll start as we usually do with a roundup of this week's news. So who's got some news for me?
Well, Matt, you were talking about the big news, I think, weren't you?
So I think the biggest news that came out this week was I say the announcement, Fallout 76 from Bethesda.
Oh yeah, they did a sort of massively long teaser thing, didn't they?
It wasn't that long, but it was very much a sort of teaser trailer building into E3. So,
I thought they showed a bobblehead for 6 hours or something on YouTube.
Oh yeah. Well, there was a counter down that was leading to the trailer. It was like a sort of stream where everyone was getting excited because it showed the little bobblehead.
Okay.
But when it actually came out, the teaser trailer didn't have a huge amount of information on it, but effectively it's going to be a Fallout game that's not like a Fallout game. So
we think.
What does that mean?
Well, there was a little bit in the middle that was on the radio, and it was announcing that once the fighting's finished, we must rebuild. So the idea is that it's either going to be a base building game set within one of the vaults, well, Vault 76, I'm guessing, or it's going to be a survival game sort of thing. But
this is all supposition, obviously. This is what people are drawing from that little teaser.
Scruff, what have you heard?
I've heard basically just that it's probably going to be some sort of online persistent game where you're going to be doing some base building. It may take place shortly after the initial events where the bombs dropped in the Fallout world. So they're talking 300 years in the future or 100 years in the future from now, basically.
I'm not sure about the words online and persistent in a Fallout game. That's a worry, isn't it?
I'm thinking it's either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go the Fortnite PvE way, where you're building a base and there's a lot of sort of environmental enemies that you've got to protect from, or it might go the sort of Ark Survival Evolved route, where you've got a base and other players can come in and attack you. I don't like the idea of that, but we'll see.
And they've already got precedent with it with Elder Scrolls Online, so it's not like this would be their first round at a rodeo, you know.
No, indeed.
It reminded me of something I did on Fallout 4, which was in one of the game mechanics of Fallout 4 is you kind of get these kind of base of operations that you can set up all over the map, and when I got my first one set up, because there's all this kind of like weird kind of crafting mechanic that you can do where you kind of create walls and ceilings and doors and stuff like that, and I spent probably a good 2 or 3 days thinking, shit, if this gets attacked, I'm going to have to make this massive fortress. So I spent ages building up this massive fortress. Realised that it makes no difference. Makes no difference
I
whatsoever.
had the same experience. Like when I started doing the building stuff, I thought this could actually be really cool because you could customise these fortresses and you think I'm going to spend some time here, I'd defend it, but it never really happened like that. All that happened was whenever you left to go somewhere else, you'd come back and it'd be fucked. Or they'd be like those super mutants everywhere.
Yeah, and occasionally you would get a little kind of notification saying, oh no, such and such one of your properties is currently being attacked, and then you go over there and then just be a couple of mutant guys there and you just shoot them and then that'd be it. But it didn't matter what building you did around it, it made no difference to the attack whatsoever. So.
I discovered something playing Fallout that you could basically put in all those water purifiers, and what would happen was the water that wasn't used by the villagers in your village would become incredibly valuable because clean water obviously has loads of value in that world. So I just built shitloads of these water coolers and just made absolute bank, and that became my life in Fallout. It's great times.
Nice.
Yeah, so Fallout 76 could be interesting. I'm not sure about the change in game style or mode. You know, I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where they are looking to I don't think they're desperately trying to kind of like permanently change how Fallout works. I think this is a kind of an intermediate game, if you like. While we wait for Fallout 5, let's do something else. And also, this is probably trying to find some way of harvesting some cash out of some kind of subscription-based game or some game where there's microtransactions or something like that. That's just the way everything's going these days.
We had a huge transition when Bethesda took over the Fallout, franchise, and from Fallout 2 to Fallout 3, completely different style and play style of games, and it worked out brilliantly for them.
Yeah, it's a very good shout, actually. If you remember going back to the early Fallout games, they were very, very different. Yeah.
I preferred them, to be honest. Like 3 and 4 haven't really done it for me. I'm more excited for this one because if it doesn't have proper combat in it, I've always found combat the weakest part of the Fallout games, so yes. I'm quite.
You're not a fan of VATS?
No, I hate it. I was talking a bit to Andy about it earlier, Andy and John, and I dislike that whole numbers falling out of people in that sort of game, and the fact that you got an image of a person and it cuts it down to say, right, you've got a 75% chance of this. It felt like it was showing you the dice rolls that most of those games do, but don't show you, and that dragged me a little bit out of the game. So
yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
I agree, and I was never massively fond of VATS, but at the same time, the kind of the free fire combat was too shonky to do anything with, and I think that's the weakest part of Fallout 4 for me. So, but it'd be interesting to see what they come up with anyway.
The thing that annoys me is this will be the third Fallout game that's been announced between Elder Scrolls proper games.
Well, that's what I was about to say, because I think any Bethesda announcement now, I'm mostly excited about the potential that it's going to be a new Elder Scrolls game. Yeah. And when it's not, I'm generally annoyed.
There is the chance that this is all trolling by Bethesda and it's going to turn out that Fallout 76 is the next Elder Scrolls game.
Get in.
I would love that.
That would be great. Yeah, because it's been a very long time now. Obviously, they've milked Skyrim as much as they possibly can, but it would be nice to have another fantasy RPG from Bethesda.
Well, they kind of went all in on the Elder Scrolls Online, and they're still releasing content for that.
But do you remember when we tried to play that one time?
Well, you played it. I watched you play it, and it was a series of fetch quests.
It was very bad.
I'm not interested in it. Make a proper game.
I also wonder if they're building from the ground up and doing it properly from the ground up. I wonder if they're spending a bit more time on it than they did on Fallout 4, which was ridden with bugs all over the shop. And I'm wondering if they're thinking, let's if we're going to do this, let's do it properly and hold it back properly.
I think what I really like about the fact is that I think they're probably thinking a couple of consoles in advance when they start making it. So that, you know, it may well be it doesn't come out on the PlayStation 4.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
may be the PlayStation 5, but that does mean that they should be able to get it right.
So other new stuff that's kind of been blowing around, because we've got E3 coming up in just a couple of weeks now,
Uh-huh.
and there's a huge big long list of games that are coming through, but some of them are extremely old, are games that we've been talking about for like the last 3 years that are still on the list.
What are you thinking about specifically?
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, this is first of all a remake of a game, but are people still excited about that? I was like, they talked about it at E3 2015.
Matt, you go, because I know you like Final Fantasy more than I do, but I probably like Final Fantasy VII more than any of you lot. So go.
You probably do, because I've never played Final Fantasy VII. My first entry into it was 10. But what I'm hearing that's kind of like making me a little squeamish about Final Fantasy VII Remake is, have they changed the plan where it was initially going to be broken out into 3 parts? So they were going to treat it very much like StarCraft 2 back in the day, where you don't get the full story until you get all 3 games, basically.
Oh, I hadn't heard that, but I've got a more worrying aspect, which is they've changed the combat system to make it more like the later Final Fantasies.
So it'll be more active time versus...
Yeah. I'm not down with it. I want a beautiful looking port of it, but what annoys me is they changed the art style from that sort of cartoony style, which I wish they'd just done, like, you know, a sort of cel shaded sort of animated version of it. But instead they went, oh, let's make it look like a current Final Fantasy game. So I'm less interested than I was when they first announced it.
Is now the time for me to confess that I've never played a single second of any Final Fantasy game?
I think that's fine.
And that's okay.
Me neither.
No.
If you're not into JRPGs, then
No.
you will not like this. So
Yeah.
I'm far more excited about Dragon Quest 12, or is it 11? I can't remember which one.
There's a lot of Dragon Quests.
I'm very
we've
excited
lost
about
count.
but yeah, I'm far more excited with that, which is coming out later in the year.
So is there anything else on that E3 list that's going to get everybody going?
Yes, for
Go
me, there's a Call of Cthulhu game.
Oh, really?
So I love Lovecraft
Yeah.
stuff. I don't like Lovecraft himself, because he was clearly a racist, bigoted old man.
Like most people from that era.
From that era, yeah. I mean, if you read any sort of novels from that
Yeah.
era, most of them were massive racists, homophobes, all that sort of stuff. But I'm a bit torn with the Call of Cthulhu one, because it seems like the first real sort of high quality Cthulhu game
Okay.
that's come out, but it's also a survival horror, which I'm not good with because I'm a coward.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see whether it's that sort of creepy Cthulhu Lovecraftian mythos, or whether it's an all-out just like Resident Evil clone or something. So I'm quite excited by that.
Right. Yeah, that could be very cool. I certainly can imagine there's some great art design options for a game like that.
We're also going to probably find out a bit more about Death Stranding, which
Yeah, it's a very good point. We haven't heard about that for a while. The
I
the
doubt
oil baby.
I doubt we'll know much more than well, we certainly won't have any more idea as to what it is by the end of E3.
Well,
but-
usually if it's anything like a Kojima game, you'll play it and you still won't know what
Yeah,
any of it
indeed.
means. So yeah, I can imagine that. But I think that must be a big one for E3, Death Stranding.
But the other one that I'm really excited for is Borderlands 3. So
Yeah.
Borderlands was not good. Borderlands 2 was excellent. You know,
You think we're going to hear something about that? I haven't heard.
But Borderlands 3 was on the list of the Walmart released
yes.
pre-orders, so it's almost certainly going to be there.
That would make sense, because they just, I think, recently announced like initial or Borderlands remastered for the first entry.
Yeah. I'm very excited because 2 was just absolutely spanking. It was the game that Destiny 2 should have been. So it was so good. I mean, I don't know if did either of you play Borderlands 2?
I did play it a little bit.
All
Yeah.
right. So there's something that sums up Borderlands 2 was there was one gun. I can't remember what it was called, but it was cursed. And it was hugely overpowered compared to its level. So when you
Right.
got it, it was hugely powerful. But every time you reloaded it, screamed reload. And it also, every time you shot it, it would just start screaming. So it was the most annoying thing. And people thought, oh right, I'll just turn down some of the special effects. if you turn down the sound effects, everything went low apart from the gun, so you could still hear it. And the
Brilliant.
worst thing is, if while you were shooting it and it was screaming, you switched out to another gun, it infected that gun as well.
Oh, that is
and it's just
Wow.
like this sort of stuff was prevalent in Borderlands
That's
2.
pretty cool.
It's just,
I like that.
it's fantastic, and I just want to see what they can do with Borderlands 3.
That does sound excellent.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, so I think E3 is going to be just around the corner, and I guess there's going to be lots of news that's going to come out of that we can add. Andy's got something to say about
Well,
it.
I mean, I think it's just inevitable because I think this round of consoles are starting to come towards the end of their life cycles. But every time E3 comes around, there's rumours as to whether or not we're going to get some kind of an announcement. I think there seems to be more about whether or not Sony are thinking about making some kind of
A hardware
console
announcement for this E3.
But I mean, I think that's just the same speculation as you get every year. Just people, it's almost certainly just clickbait stuff more than anything
That's
else.
exactly
but
what I was going to say, because the only people I've seen talking about it are clickbait websites that click on it going, there's been no announcement about it. Like, when's the new PlayStation 5 going to be out? You want to know? It's like, we don't know. Brilliant.
Yeah. I think there's going to be...
Well, we also had, though, a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, where a Sony executive basically said the PlayStation 4 is approaching its end of its life cycle. So that's where a lot of that speculation has started to crop up. So I'm not going to be... I won't be surprised if we don't hear anything this year, but I think next year we'll probably start to hear something about the next generation.
Yeah, I think there's talk about new NVIDIA graphics cards as well coming out for the PC game types, because they're about due for another one. So that will be the 1180 or whatever that comes out, and that might drive the next generation of chips that go into the next console. So
now would be a good time for me to settle an old score with someone I work with, right? Who told me 3 or 4 years ago that the Steam box was going to replace all the consoles and make them redundant. He's clearly wrong.
He's very wrong.
Very wrong.
That's about the same.
Producing.
Yeah,
I'm not naming names, but
he didn't talk about the Ouya as well, did he? As being the next big thing,
No, he
because that
was
was another
obsessed.
disaster.
obsessed with Total War games as well. I don't know.
Steam also, probably around the same sort of time, but Steam brought out the Steam controller as well, didn't it? It was this really weird thing with like trackpads and stuff like that. Which
I was also told that was going to change the face of controllers. So
all of this, and now Gabe Newell's basically given up completely, right? So Steam has now just become a dumping ground for absolute crap.
oh, it's trash, isn't it? I was thinking about this the other day. I watched that Jim Sterling one where he was banging on about weirdly, after we talked about Active Shooter, he was talking about Active Shooter 2 days later, and he was just talking about.
You
the
say
fact
we're
that
ahead of Jim Sterling?
we are
Yeah, wow.
2 days ahead of him. But he was talking about the fact that Steam will just let anything on. And it really is. It has become that point where I'm looking for a new game to play. I type in real-time strategy or something, and you end up with a bunch of garbage.
Yeah. If you've got any interest whatsoever, anybody that's listening, into the Steam Greenlight or the Steam Store, watch any of Jim Sterling's videos, because they're quite revealing on that subject.
Although he does like Dark Souls.
He does like Dark Souls, and that's one place where him and I differ.
After the last pod, we were talking about Dark Souls, and we've discussed the idea of me maybe doing a bit of a playthrough just to see. I actually then went and watched a little bit of some people streaming of playing the Dark Souls remaster. It looks fucking awful.
Yes, this is exactly why we might do it. I think that would be an excellent series. I think we might have to crack on with that. But so
before
I think
we get away from E3, can I toss out a couple of games I'm interested in seeing? I want to see... Well, first off, I'm kind of worried, so I kind of want to see Anthem from BioWare. I want to see what this game is all about. I want to see whether or not BioWare can basically kind of come back from the critical failure that was Mass Effect Andromeda. So I want to see whether or not BioWare still has it or not.
That will be interesting. Was Anthem the one that we saw at the previous E3 that had those guys like flying on jetpacks through some kind of alien jungle world? Was that Anthem?
No, I don't think so. I think all we've really seen from it are just a couple of like screenshots or videos. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I
think a good BioWare game would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But I wonder. It was pretty disastrous, wasn't it, Andromeda?
Yeah, it was.
Well, yeah, Andromeda was pretty disastrous, and they pretty much shelved the Mass Effect universe for now just because it was so critically poorly received. But now, they're kind of hedging everything on this new Anthem game, which is supposed to be a multiplayer game. It's going to be one of those games as a service thing, kind of like, Overwatch and Fortnite. So they're kind of hedging all their bets on this, and I'm
Interesting.
nervous for them because I want to see whether or not this is going to be a success or if it's going to be, something where they're just kind of shoving it out just to try to get anything out that's going to get attention to them, but it's going to end up ultimately killing the studio is what I'm afraid of. 'Cause
Yeah,
I just
quite.
I don't know what it's going to be, and that makes me nervous.
Yeah, quite. I think what did we have? Dragon Age. When was the last Dragon Age game? That's quite a long time ago now.
Inquisition, I would have thought.
That's been about 3-4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I think obviously everyone is waiting on Red Dead, but because Rockstar kind of do things onto their own accord, right? That game is not going to feature at E3, and likewise with CD Projekt Red, they will do stuff to their own tune as well because they have that that futuristic cyberpunk RPG thing coming out, which I've forgotten the name. It's called like Cyberpunk
Yeah.
something or other. And that would be really cool. But again, I don't think they get involved with E3. I think they'll
Well,
kind
they don't need it as a launch pad, do they?
No.
So
They
they've
have
got
their own fans.
It's
Yeah.
the same as Blizzard because Blizzard have BlizzCon where they announce all their stuff, so they never participate in E3 to the same extent as other companies.
So I think E3 is going to be cool. It's going to be in a couple of weeks' time. We'll get a load more news out of that. But apart from the stuff that's been in the news this week, what's been going on in your life, Matt Angel?
My life,
Yes.
gaming wise, or
Well, just in general.
Well-
I mean, we've got a pod to fill because I haven't done a
Okay.
quiz.
Well,
so.
yesterday I spent the day in a field, which was amazing. So that was
Yes,
quite good.
seeing Nick Cave and Kylie.
Yeah. I went off to the All Points East. I saw Patti Smith. She was amazing. I
Very
saw
nice.
Courtney Barnett. She was great. But Nick Cave was just something else yet again. So,
Awesome.
dragged Kylie on stage. Well, he didn't drag her on stage. It wasn't like some sort of like... He did get like half... Well, I say half the crowd. That would be like 20,000 people. But it was
Yeah.
a significant number of crowd on the stage. The security looked like they were having a coronary at one point. It was fantastic. So, absolutely brilliant.
Very
Had a
nice.
wonderful time. But gaming-wise, I've been playing a couple of Lovecraft games. So
Go on.
I mentioned that there hasn't really been a sort of AAA or even like a high-budget Lovecraft style game, but there have been quite a few sort of indie style ones. So I started playing through Darkest Dungeon again. So I downloaded this for the PS4 about a couple of years ago and couldn't really get into it. And so I actually bought it on the iPad for £5 because it's something I could duck in and out of, and I've become massively addicted to it. So it's a RPG, it's side-scrolling RPG,
Okay.
Dungeon Delver, but you've got a health bar, but you've also got a sanity bar, and if your people get stressed, they can develop negative quirks, so like
Okay.
kleptomania, where they'll steal all your loot and things like that.
Nice.
And so effectively you can get these positive and negative quirks. So you end up building up these characters and you can have a roster of like 21 characters, but you can only take 4 into the dungeons, but they've all got different classes. But the
nice.
classes aren't like elf, dwarf, things like that. It's like crusader. You can get lepers. Lepers are brilliant. they're like really, really powerful, but they've got absolutely no accuracy. It's brilliant.
No.
But you end up with so I've got these really I've got level 6 heroes, I've got level 1 heroes, but the level 6 heroes I've become quite attached to, but they tell you not to become attached to these.
Right.
Because it constantly saves, so every decision you make lasts. So if if you go into a dungeon, you're not equipped, and one of your characters gets really unlucky, which they can, which I'll talk about in a minute, they can die and they're gone.
That's like cannon fodder.
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
No,
Oh yeah.
it's like XCOM. You remember when you lose
Yes,
your character
yeah,
in XCOM?
yeah,
But
yeah.
you could always reload XCOM and have that character back. You can't do that with Darkest Dungeon.
Ooh,
But it's
brutal.
brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. There is a problem with it. Like, I shouldn't like this game. It's really, really hard, and it's hard unnecessarily.
Right.
It's quite stressful because you're sending these characters in that you've had for, like, I've played it for about 30 hours, and
Okay.
there's one character who's been there since the start. And I'm scared to send him on missions just in case he gets unlucky, because there is a lot of RNG as well. So,
Okay.
and I don't like RNG plus difficulty, because generally that means you can get really unlucky and it's hard
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying it so much because it's very funny. It's got a narrator who talks through all the dungeon, and so if you like kill someone, he'll go, "A sickening blow," and it's just really, really, it's really hammy. I've got a soundboard which I can find a soundboard and I'll play some of the stuff for you guys later, and it's just very, very funny.
Nice.
So I've been loving that. The other one I've played is really, really weird. It's called Cultist Simulator,
Okay.
and it's a card game on Steam.
Right.
And it's one of the oddest games I've ever played. And it's effectively you're a normal person trying to start a cult, or you may not be trying to start a cult, but it's a card game. And have you ever played Doodle God?
No.
So Doodle God is where you start off with two things, and you mix them together, and you get a third thing, and then you try and make different things using
Okay.
like. So effectively, you'll get water and fire. You'll mix them together. You'll get steam. You'll then mix steam and fire, and you might get
Okay.
clouds. or
Okay.
something.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like that, where you start off with 3 cards, one of which is health, one of which is money, and one of which is your job. And the only thing you've got at the moment, at the start, is do. So you do your job. So you do your job, you get money, and you get another thing. Then another thing, which is explore. So you might find like a card that says bookshop. And so you drop the bookshop in, and it might go, you find a book. And
Yes, I
it's
do know this.
Really,
Yeah.
really odd. But the
Yeah.
worst thing is, it's real time, so that takes time to do your job.
Yes.
But at the same time, you need to eat. So there's another timer on the right-hand side, which takes one of your money each time.
Yes.
And if you run out of money, you
Yeah.
starve in the game.
I do remember this. It's almost like spinning plates,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? You've got to keep
Yeah,
all the plates
indeed.
spinning.
Oh, that sounds like stress to me.
You can pause it at any time to
Okay.
figure out what you do. But there's different ways of finishing. So one game I played, I was a police officer, and I was trying to investigate a crime. And you can actually do it by just doing the job and finding out who did the crime. But the other thing you can do is just start a cult and recruit the people you're investigating.
Nice.
But it's really difficult. It's quite stressful. But at the same point, it's the weirdest game I've ever played. I love it. It's so Lovecraftian. It's
Yeah.
by the same. Well, it's by the same creator who did Sunless Sea, which was another indie Lovecraft game, which was fantastic. So I'd recommend it. It's just so odd.
Nice. Well, that sounds pretty cool, actually. I mean, I've been at the other end of the gaming spectrum because this week FIFA 18 dropped the World Cup mode. So, because we're all getting very excited about the World Cup over here, I decided to have a go on that. And it was quite good. But what made it really good was that I socialised all of my results. And I think that was making it much more interesting than it really was. Because we were basically pretending like we were really in the tournament. And so I was sending them, oh my God, England have beaten Romania 1-0 in the third round knockout game. It was like pretty good.
And we were getting updates in the semi-final and stuff, and I was actually starting to get really nervous.
But it's quite nice. At least, for once, at least they've done something for free that they've given away for that game, which is pretty good. So I was enjoying that, and it was all branded as well for the World Cup. So I got to look at like what the World Cup branding would be like, which is very cool, actually. Yeah, so that was quite good fun. The other thing that I haven't been playing, but I've really thought about purchasing, and maybe one of you guys has seen it, is a game that's on offer at the moment in the PlayStation store called Old Man's Journey.
Oh, I've seen that. It looks like a little kind of cartoony,
It
stylized
looks beautiful.
thing. Yeah. I've not seen what kind of game it is, though.
No, I think it's a point-and-click adventure, I think,
Okay.
basically. But it looks absolutely beautiful. It's kind of like a hand-drawn art game where all of the scenes look like they're cut out of paper, like and hand-painted, hand-drawn. It looks absolutely fantastic, and it's on offer for $7.99. So I think, especially given my injury and that I can't play proper games, I might invest in Old Man's Journey.
Sounds good.
I've never heard of that. So
Yeah, I only saw it just because I was browsing around on the PlayStation Store. I've not played a whole lot of video games over the last week at all. I played a little bit of Fortnite with you guys. I dived back into Far Cry 5, and I found something a little bit concerning, and that is the fact that after kind of having done, because it's kind of split into 3, if you like, the map's split into 3 kind of areas, and you kind of solve each area. I mean, you can stray off that if you want, but I finished the first third, but just by the nature of the game, there's a bunch of things that you like side missions and bits and pieces and stuff that you don't have to have completed to finish that area. And now my completist nature wants to go off and finish all those things, but I also find it a chore and I find it boring. And so I've not gone. So this is because I'm also
Welcome to Far Cry.
yeah, and it's also because this is how I'm shit at doing open world games, and I've got no discipline. Like, what I need to do is fuck all those things off. I don't need to worry about them.
Yeah.
And just go off and do the story missions in the new areas.
Yes.
But so it might lose me, this game, but partly just because I'm not very good at playing this kind of game properly.
Yeah,
So
no,
it
I
might
get
be
it.
entirely my fault, but we'll see. But I'm going to have a go at actually just ploughing through a little bit.
I get it. It became a pretty major grind for me by the end, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised at all. Scruff, what have you been playing over there?
I have just finished 100%ing God of War, so I just finished that entire game.
100%ed it.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay. There's like a few lore pieces I didn't find, but
Oh
those
my
aren't required
goodness.
for trophies, so I didn't care about that.
Well done.
So
did you get
so
the,
I got
did you
through
get the
every-
platinum trophy then?
yeah.
Fucking hell.
So-
Well done, sir. Very good. I'll give you a coin if I can find
yeah.
the button.
I
There
haven't
you
done
go.
that, but that's because I played the story mode and then I lost interest in the side missions. So I've
That'll
given my
happen.
copy to Andy. So
That was it. I deliberately avoided the main storyline just as much as possible because I was having so much fun doing the side missions, and I'm like, if I finish the game, then I'm not going to want to go back and finish the side
Yeah,
mission.
yeah.
So let's
Yes.
let's hold off. Let's delay that as long as possible.
that's where I got to. But I still, even having played mainly just the story mission, and yes, it's relatively short. It's not quite Uncharted short. I don't feel ripped off having played full price for that. It's just
Not at
such a
all.
wonderful story. So
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'm very impressed you did the platinum, Matt. That's quite something. I haven't
Not
done that.
bad. Like it was relatively easy. It wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. So once I got into it and kind of figured out, I was like, okay, I can take down these Valkyries. Let's go for it. Let's see if we can make it happen. So it worked.
Nice.
The most tedious part was finding all of the ravens scattered around the various realms that you have to interact with, and that was tedious. I'm not going to lie, I did cheat and look up where to find some of them because otherwise
Yeah,
I was
I
going to
don't
go
blame you.
crazy.
I don't think that's cheating.
No, I think you're fine.
That's
I
a
think-
resource these days. It's not like you put in
Exactly,
a code and
exactly.
instantly found them. So
No, exactly. Oh, well, that's very good. So
Yeah.
the other thing, I guess, what I was going to talk about before we go into our weekly top 5 was we've been playing some more Fortnite. We had a surprise victory the other day, which was pretty good.
yeah.
And we hadn't had a victory for quite a while, I don't think. And then that one cropped up out of nowhere. And Andy's been driving us through the challenges, which I am now very much into as well. And there's a few new things that have happened. The thing I do like about Fortnite, to be fair to Epic, there's always stuff happening. Like even we play pretty regularly, but it seems like when we log in once a week, even maybe there's a new thing.
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's an update once or twice a week now. I think they do pretty much an update every time the new weekly challenges come in, don't they? One of the great things about it since this new season 4 started is they've completely themed the map with the kind of meteor and the superhero themes and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's added some things to the map. It's actually detracted a little bit from the map for a certain few things because obviously we're not happy with the fact they got rid of the prison. Well, the prison is very different.
True.
But as the season's gone on, they've been developing the map. So
Little things have been changing.
like the craters are being filled in, and there's
Trucks.
trucks around
Yeah.
full of like the rocks and stuff like that. So
We got very excited by
Yeah.
that, didn't we?
so it's really cool. They're putting there's lots of time, thought, energy, and detail into it now. So that's and this is a great way to keep people interested in it because
Yes,
it's kind of
yeah,
something
yeah.
you want to go and look for, see what they've done to the game next. So and they're also bringing in a lot more of the limited time modes as well. So they're starting to put them on serious heavy rotation. There's a new one which is the 20v20v20v20v20.
Yeah, we tried that, didn't we, last night? It's okay. I kind of didn't really like. Our team died straight away, which made it very hard for us.
I think it's one that you want to roll in on a full squad of 4. So I think it's one that I think there's more to more enjoyment to be had there.
Yeah.
I think in that respect. But yeah, you're right. We did it. Our entire team of 20 basically died really quickly. It was just me and Si who were left on our
Yeah.
team. We didn't last very long after that. We took a couple of fellas down though. So. But yeah, so they're keeping it mixed up. They're keeping it interesting. So there's plenty to go on that game yet.
Yeah, there were two things that I got. Like, two of my favourite things in Fortnite over the last week have been me, you, and Si finding a hatch in the middle of the forest and just getting very excited about it. Even though we couldn't get in it, we were just getting very excited about there was a hatch there.
Yeah.
And the other thing was just me and Andy just having great fun with the shopping trolley. So yeah.
Yes. I don't know, Scruff, if we told you about that. We found a hatch. Like a Lost style hatch.
Yeah, it was like just in the forest. It was very odd.
and it was just sort of sat there. Like it's really funny because I had seen nothing about this hatch anywhere, and then so I thought, well, I'm going to actually go on. So I kind of went onto Reddit and stuff like that, and then did a search for Fortnite hatch, only to find somebody had found it 20 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, fine.
It might have been 20 days ago, actually.
We're just not very perceptive.
Yeah. But there we go.
Yeah, so I think Fortnite is a game that keeps on giving at the moment. So I think we're still playing through it, and I'm still enjoying it. Although I do feel like we're having worse games more often. That's just my general feeling.
I don't know. I mean, I think we have phases. I think a lot of it depends on how much we're paying attention.
That is true.
I really do. And yeah, but our win counter's still ticking over.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we've won 3 in the last few weeks.
Okay,
so
nice.
I think we're all right.
As long as we win one, as long as we win one in every 20, I feel like okay, good.
Yeah.
Like there we go, we're back in business.
I mean, we're often in like top 5, so
That is
I
true.
think it's all right.
Yeah, we're consistently up there. Right, I think we'll take a little quick break and then we're going to come back with our top 5 this week. And our top 5 this week is top 5 power-ups. So prepare yourself for that and we'll be back in just one moment. Right, we are back. So this week we're going to do our top 5 and it's going to be top 5 power-ups. So starting with you, Matt Holland. No, maybe not. We won't start with Matt Holland. We'll start with Matt Angel.
Right, okay. I've got 2 just in case. One of them is cheating, so I'm going to leave that in case we need an extra one.
Okay.
But the one I'm going to talk about first is it's from a very, very old game. I think it may have been in the more recent ones, but it's the Berserker little crate from Doom.
Shit, that was my one.
Was it? Okay. That is because it is, in my opinion, the greatest power up
It is
of all time.
amazing,
So
yes.
in the original Doom, you pick it, like, I remember the first time I picked it up, I don't know how old I was. I must have been about sort of like 12 or 13 or something. And you're playing this game and suddenly the screen goes red and you're like, what's going on? And suddenly you are just killing like all the monsters left, right and centre. Because it does something like buffs your damage by like 10 times or something.
It's super, super satisfying because it puts you into, like you do the glory kills where you time them up and you rip the enemies apart. That's all you do. So you drop your weapon and you just run around tearing enemies apart.
See,
it's so cool.
I'm talking about the one in the original game. So it's like
Oh,
all it's
yeah.
doing is like you're having to hit these things like 3 or 4 times normally. You are one-shotting these massive monsters, but your screen's bright red and it's gradually just the colours draining out of it and
It's
then gradually
so
it goes back
cool.
to normal. It just the most wonderful power-up in terms of a game.
Yeah.
That's just reminded me. It's not a power up, but it's worth mentioning because it's vaguely related. On Grand Theft Auto 5, Trevor's rampage missions, where just out of nowhere you just go on these rampages and just go berserk and just like kill like 100 rednecks or whatever.
But you had similar things in Diablo 3 where you'd get a berserker mode and you just start munching through everything. But I think Doom was the most satisfying because it was so hard normally, and then suddenly you've got this thing and you're just like, right, where is it? Like it's the equivalent of like, getting the pack pill in
Yes.
like Pac-Man, where you instead of running away from things, you're actually going, come here.
Yeah. The hunted becomes the hunter.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
why it's so good. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so that's mine. The Berserker. Well, it's mine and yours. The Berserker pack from Doom.
Very nice. And maybe I can get Matt Holland again this time for his.
I'm here.
There you
The sound
are.
just went dead on my end for like 5 seconds. I don't know why.
We got you now.
Yep. All right. So I was also going to toss in 2 possible entries. So my first one is an old classic. So we're going to go for the Power Pellets from the Pac-Man series. That's the
Very
ultimate
good.
power up right there. It's like that's exactly what it's for. It's to give you a little extra boost. It's so you can take out the ghosts, so you're not having to constantly run away from them. It's the classic power up.
Quick question: is that the first power up in a game?
It's a great question. I was just thinking that.
I bet it is.
I remember doing it, and the first time I ate that pill, it was like dee, and I was like, shit! It was so cool.
In that one, is the missile defense thing? Was that before? Would that have been before Pac-Man? Were there any
Yes.
power-ups in that? Actually, I'm not sure there were.
There weren't any in Missile Command. No.
What about Breakout? Was that before?
Breakout did have power-ups.
But it wouldn't have been before Pac-Man.
No,
would
I
it?
don't think so.
I would guess that Space Invaders has them.
Yeah, you could shoot that spaceship, but I think it was just extra points. I don't know if you actually got a power-up
Yeah,
in
you're
it.
probably right.
It's a very good question. Some research, and we could have sounded super knowledgeable. But
Yeah.
instead, we'll just speak confidently, and people will believe us.
Sorry, Matt, I interrupted you then because I was very excited that you may have come up with the first power up ever. But
It may be pretty close. It's got to be pretty close, I would imagine. I don't know if it's the first. I'm sure somebody would know what the actual first one was, but I don't think maybe that was it. So who knows? Anyway, my next one goes back to the game that I just finished playing. I was going to talk about Kratos' rage power, where you build up rage in the God of War games, and then you just basically in the current game, you basically just drop all your weapons and you just go punch the shit out of things.
it's very much like the Berserk mode on Doom.
Yeah, similar kind of thing.
You unleash holy hell on any enemy who's in your way, and it's so visceral and so satisfying. It just you feel completely empowered by it, and it lasts a good long while. So I loved. When I would get my rage fully built up and I would just be able to go wail on whoever was getting in my way, and it was fantastic. I loved it.
I love this. I feel like my power ups are really kind of quite sedate, because you guys are talking about these ones that are building up rage and killing out and mercilessly murdering thousands of innocent or possibly guilty people. But yeah, mine are all quite sedate and quite boring in retrospect. You remind one of mine. I mean, I've got a few to talk through, and you can pick whichever ones you want to. But one of mine, you've reminded me of one of mine, which is and I forget which Mario game it is, but it's in one of the Mario games where it's the super mushroom that makes you fucking massive, like makes you the size of the screen.
That's
and you
awesome.
just go charging through the level.
That was on the DS version of
Yes.
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, that was the new Super Mario Brothers.
So good though.
Well, what I loved about that is because it is kind of, because it was a great version of the game, and there's lots of kind of thinking to do. There's lots of jumping around. It's kind of, it's quite, they're hard. Not hard work's the wrong word, but they require a bit of concentration, a bit of skill, and stuff like that. And just for that moment, it is just complete and total 100% like relaxation. You're just charging through. There's like a degree of satisfaction because all the pipes go flying up in the air, and there's literally nothing that can kill you. Because even on like the invincibility things and stuff like that, you can still fall down the holes and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas this is it, and it's like the bullet when you're coming fucking massively last in Mario Kart, one of the later Mario Karts. You just, oh, thank God for that. I'm just gonna like just have a break and relax for a few
very
seconds.
cool.
Don't
and
even
do
have to
that.
steer. You're just
Yeah.
like, it's fine.
Yeah,
So,
very nice.
I love that. The one of my other favorite power ups, and this is actually a combination of two power ups, and in fact it's actually completely the opposite of what I've just said. But it's in Sonic and Sonic 2 when you could combine the super speed boots and the invincibility thing, and when you went so fucking fast,
that was awesome.
the screen couldn't even remotely keep up with you, and you would go absolutely flying off, and the screen would be like charging along, like trying to catch up, and eventually you would get to a point either you'd landed on some spikes and died, or you'd completed the level.
Yeah,
And
that is a great
utterly
shout. I'd
ridiculous.
totally forgotten about that, but that is a fantastic shout, that one. I used to love that. It's because it was just like you couldn't believe how fast he was going. And Sonic's already a fast game, so it was crazy.
Yeah, really good stuff.
That is very cool.
I've got a couple more. They're not really power-ups because they're kind of just standard weapons in a game. But in Mario Kart, the green shell in Mario Kart, I fucking loved in the original SNES version of it, because I was excellent at it. Like there was nothing more satisfying, because what you could do is you could lock yourself in a slide and you could fire it essentially behind you by firing it to the left, and so you could almost aim it. And so you, if you were any good at it, or what you could do is if you got like a turn coming up, you could fire it off and then turn, and it would bounce off the wall and hit the person who was coming in behind you and stuff like that. And I got really, and it was so super satisfying. Once you got good and you could nail that. And also on top of that, the banana skins, because again there was nothing more satisfying than one of your mates behind you fucking sounds really smug because the fucker's got a red shell, and he's out there and you can hear they go do is the red shell's coming, and then you drop the little banana skin behind you and like scupper their red shell. I love that.
Very good indeed.
There's one that I want to talk about. It's not
Yeah.
technically a power up, but I was reading about it the other day, and it just made me very happy about games in general. So it's going back to the original Divinity Original Sin, and there's this story that came out around something called the Lava Core, which was a single use spell that you could effectively craft if you got quite lucky. It was super rare. But it enabled you to one-shot the final boss, which was really, really hard.
That's pretty
And
cool.
there's a lovely story where this guy met one of the designers at a conference or something, and the guy was talking about going, I love Divinity Original Sin, and the designer was like, oh, how did you find how long did it take you to do the final boss? And he was like, I one-shotted him. And the guy was like, that's not possible. Oh, well, which mod did you use? And he went, I didn't use a mod. And he was like, that's not possible. So the game designer thought it was impossible. But the idea was that this spell just generated lava once in a
Right.
single place, and lava in Divinity Original Sin will kill anything.
Right.
And so when he explained this to this guy, the guy was like, we didn't design it that way. But the fact that this one single power-up exists that this guy held on to till the final boss and just one-shotted it.
That is very
and the fact that the
cool.
designers, I just thought it was such a lovely story.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Brilliant stuff.
Nice. So what have we got on the list then? I think we're putting in the Sonic double power-up thing, which is awesome. We're going to put in the Pac-Man original pill, because that is the business. We're going to put in Doom Berserker.
Yeah.
But I'm tempted to put in the Doom Berserker twice.
Later ones and earlier ones?
Yes, the
Okay.
2016 and original Doom Berserkers, which leaves one more space, which I think this week we will give to the giant Super Mario power-up.
Yes.
Nice.
Happy with that?
Yeah, very happy with that. Lovely
Very
stuff.
nice indeed. And I think, gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our slightly shorter than usual show this week. But again, we've covered some very important ground. I think we've all moved forward. We've all grown as people. We've all had a great time. So I'm going to ask you, in order as usual, to say good night. So I'm going to say goodbye, Andy.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, Matthew Angel.
Bye.
And goodbye, Matt Holland.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. And I'm going to fire up our fantastic music as we listen once again to the beautiful overture from Overwatch, a game that none of us play anymore, but is ironically still a major feature of this show. So, ladies and gents, please enjoy this, and we'll see you next week on the Idiot Gamer Podcast. Ah!